Hey guys, it's Cam for Investors Underground. As I'm sure a lot of you are already aware, Investors Underground has been in business for over a decade. And that's by no accident. Every day, myself, Nate, and the Investors Underground team are striving to make the service better for members and develop the features and tools that we provide to bring value to members on a daily basis. We do this in a few different ways, one of which is thinking about what we would like from the service if we were subscribers ourselves. Another is listening to subscribers' feedback to try and tailor the service to specific wants or needs. And one piece of feedback that we've been getting regularly is, Nate, can you share one of your desktop monitors for us? Maybe do a little live streaming and vlogging at the same time. So over the past 6 months, we've been looking for a technological solution to provide a live stream without a delay to interfere with market data that was going to be able to be broadcast to all of our members for them to be able to watch what Nate's looking at and how he's scanning for stocks. We think we found the right solution, and we've been testing it out for the last couple of months and getting feedback from members again to see how they're enjoying the added engagement. Let's have a bit of a glance together at what all that looks like now.
So this video is going to be a little bit of a long one, but everything in it is really valuable information, so be sure to stick around. I'm going to be covering off a few new features of Investors Underground that are really a game changer for people who are not only learning how to trade, but also seasoned traders who are looking for a little more engagement. So there are 3 things that we're going to be covering off today. The first is a 24/7 broadcast that streams a bunch of different things in one window. The second thing we're going to have a look at is one of Nate's pre-market live stream, where between the times of 8:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. Eastern, he's going through with live audio and video, narrowing down his previous night's scans, and talking through the game plan for the trading day coming up. The third thing we're going to be looking at is a live intraday study group. You know, the way that we approach education here at Investors Underground is group learning with individual attention. So the idea behind these small study groups are, if people have questions that they'd like to have answered or workshopped, they can ask them throughout the day, and Nate will jump on and, with audio and video and screen capture, answer their questions on a one-on-one basis. However, leave the forum open for anyone else who wants to come in, who might also be interested in the subject matter, as often after a certain move in a stock or a certain event that might happen during the day, a lot of traders may have similar kinds of questions that we can go over in a small group and learn in a tutorial and mentorship kind of environment. There are examples of all of this coming up in the video, and also a couple of free lessons that you're going to find really valuable to give you a taste of the level of engagement and care that the Investors Underground community nurtures. So the first thing we're going to do is log on to the Investors Underground website and launch the Traders Lounge from the dashboard. The Traders Lounge is a place where we encourage conversation that might be a little too chatty for the momentum room. It's also where members can come and chat with the moderators and have questions answered, and kind of just a fun and friendly environment for traders to learn and hang out. So from here, you're going to be able to launch the broadcast, and that's going to bring up this screen here, which is actually a 24/7 live stream of one of Nate's monitors. So the quality might look a little blurry for this YouTube video, but we spent a lot of time and energy ensuring that the quality is perfect while we're doing our broadcast to members so they can see everything in fine detail. Members get a live stream of Nate's scanning monitor. So on this monitor, he has his equity feed set up with all of the parameters that he's developed over the years to scan for stocks. This screen also has trade ideas, again with all of Nate's specific parameters. And it's got a DAS high of day, low of day list, and a chart level 2 and time and sales if he wants to pop something up there and draw some lines on it. We've been getting really great feedback from members because they love being able to see the tickers that are hitting Nate's scan live. And it also saves a bunch of screen real estate by being able to have all of this on one monitor with the chat room. It's 8:50 a.m. in the morning, and as I mentioned, Nate is going to be doing his pre-market live stream, narrowing down his scan. We're going to cross over to him now.
All right, so we'll go ahead and go over what I'm watching so far for the morning. There isn't anything that's crazy, appealing yet. There's a lot of stocks with range. So as far as additions to the watch list last night, which I'll go over in a second, there's SBBP, which a well-known bio guy really does like. Thinks that it's worth quite a bit higher. That could be good and bad. It's just like as if Adam Feurenstein comes out and is negative on something and it starts to go the opposite way, a lot of people could be on the wrong side. And likewise, if somebody that is very bullish and has a lot of respect within that the biotech industry, and it continues to go down, well, then you're probably going to have a lot of people on the wrong side. So I think that rather than use the weight of somebody that typically has potentially good ideas, it's better to be patient and wait for the trade to kind of set up and come to you. So, for example, what I'd be looking for is either a washout out of the open and then let it start to come back, let it start to, pretty much wash out, come back up a little bit, and then retest a higher low, and then start to grind out from there. At which point I would put a little bit on, and then if it starts to reclaim over VWAP, I would add a little bit, and then if it starts to break towards the pre-highs, then I would get a little bit more excited. So that is SBBP. ABIL, I already traded this morning a little bit. This is, I think that everybody should know ABIL by now. It was a huge winner just, a month and a half ago or so. But they had a 6K out yesterday, which kind of, shows they still have a pulse. They're not just going to, delist, which was their last filing. They still very much may. But the chances are they're going to have this 6K out. Maybe they put it out as a PR, and then they can potentially raise and then to delist. So this is definitely one that should be watched today. The problem is it's probably going to be a chat room target for the newsletter pumps out of the gate. So with that said, you just need to be aware of that. Pretty much anybody that's been a trader in the last month and a half should know this and should be able to react fairly quickly to a move like this. So obviously not a chase type one, but one to watch and just be aware that, newsletters may kind of come in and crowd it. So if they do, my rules, I usually just go ahead and get the hell out. And then lastly, BSTI has big range. It's already sold off quite a bit into this. So there's two plays here, and obviously it's not saying much. I'm not, long bias. I'm not short bias, but the bias that I do have is I think it's going to give us at least 50 cents to at least maybe $1 worth of range, and that's all I care about. I want to be able to join that trend. So gap down so far. It's starting to base around the 8s. If it has trouble and it kind of pushes into 840s, 850s, and it starts to peak out, then there's a good chance it's going to go sub 8. And I have no problem, even with this chart, I have no problem joining the trend short. So those are probably the only ads this morning based on, gap ups and things like that. As far as last night's scan, we can just go ahead and go through it briefly. And like I've been talking about recently, the scans are good for the bigger picture ideas. There's a lot of opportunity that lately it's been multi-day trades. Things that are holding on. The move is happening over 2, 3, or even a week plus. And I think that scan is a good place to keep track of those and kind of always go back and get a feel for what you were right about, what you were wrong about, and what's setting up again. And that's sort of why I saw EGLT yesterday. Obviously, EGLT is down on earnings today, 13% so far. But this was just one that had been on prior scans. I saw it, getting accumulated and whatnot. So that's the benefit of always kind of keeping an eye on scan. Sort of how I use it. It's not necessarily the exact ones I'm going to use out of the gate, because at the end of the day, I like to trade momentum. I like to trade volume, and you're going to get your top plays for that by seeing what's moving on news. So IFMK, there's a good chance that this just fails the rest of the day and just heads back down. This was a newsletter push out of the open yesterday, and shorts just ended up getting trapped a little bit. 2 occasions where they got trapped, and like I went over on the video last night, a lot of times people will short into the newsletter after they sell. and then they start to kind of get patient, they overstay, and it squeezes them out. And then again, later in the day, it did that. So in my opinion, most of the shorts are, pretty much blown out into the close yesterday. So there's not going to be a natural bid, like we were talking about in the chat room yesterday, left, because all the bidders were probably shorts and then kind of breakout buyers, and now they're all just bag holders left. So, and just while I'm talking, ABIL is still ripping towards new highs. CWVR is one of those where, look, the volume is much lower. So there's a, potential that if 6 starts to base, then I'd be looking for a ramp back up. And, this is the type where it could go 6, 7, 8, as you can see by these prior candles. Other than that, just going through, VCEL is not anything that I expect too much of, but I definitely expect a trade in the coming days. So I would join a trend post 10 a.m. But for now, nothing exciting off the open. And I mean, that's pretty much it. The other ones are bigger picture ideas, dips and joins. Depot is a great chart, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. So I think that really there's a lot of opportunities here, but my focus will just be on the ones with the volume, and that's what it's about. I might be looking at 10 stocks, and I'm familiar with it. We've gone over it. We've seen it. But right now, I am looking at SPBP as something that's already got almost 1 million volume, which has a bunch of range. I'm looking at ABIL, which we're familiar with. It gave an opportunity already on the 6K that I had mentioned. BSTI, not much volume, but big range. And then pretty much it. I mean, MNK and AMD is probably the only other two that I'd be watching at the moment. So hopefully that helps with a few things, but don't have to trade them all. That's not what my goal is. My goal is not to watch 10 stocks. My goal is just to be familiar with 10 stocks, and then really zone in and focus on 2 or 3. And then as the day progresses, I don't mind holding more stocks. Just get on the right side of it and scale into the trade as the day progresses. But out of the gate, I only want to watch 2 to 3 names.
That was really awesome. So often we get the question, how do you know which stocks to be trading, or, how do you scan for stocks? This really answers it in no uncertain terms. As I mentioned earlier, the feedback from members has really been positive on this, and this is part of everyone's Investors Underground Elite membership. There's no hidden fees, there's no upgrade costs. We're now delivering this in addition to everything else that we do as part of your one-stop Investors Underground subscription. So from here, we're going to fast forward a little through the trading day to one of our midday mentor study group sessions. It's around 1 p.m. now. The morning trading session is pretty much a wrap. A bunch of interesting things have happened in the market, and we've got questions from members to the moderators via private message that some of our members would like us to go over. So at Investors Underground, no question goes unanswered. And now we're going to jump into one of these live study groups to workshop members' questions and make sure they understand what's going on in the markets.
All right, so like usual, I'll just talk about a few of the trades that I get the most questions on. We can open it up a little bit, but it seems like most people had a good day so far based on what you guys are saying in the lounge. But yeah, like I was saying, I mean, even or up is the name of the game, with as little headaches as possible, because you don't realize how fast being even or up actually adds up. Because if you can keep it from the big drawdowns, gains compound pretty nicely. People underestimate the power of an even day. If you can avoid a large drawdown, it's easy. Sometimes you walk into traps and walk into things, but for the most part, if that's your focus, then you'd be surprised how fast that they continue to grow. All right, so first and foremost, just a couple little recaps here, and I'll do ABIL last just because I get the most questions on it. IDRA was a kind of a dip opportunity, dip idea that I had the last few days. I think I put it in the room Thursday or Friday last week, I think. And the goal was just to buy dips if the trend held. So it ended up holding trend today, started to ramp up. And so I added to it, and it had a pretty decent move off the open. And then, unfortunately, a chat room came in. And, I have one rule and that is just slam the bid anytime the crowd comes in. So, I mean, granted, I got good exits, but I would have preferred to have a nice slow grind higher on a trade like this. So anyway, they ended up selling, and it came, straight in as all the, buy now, sell now type chasers and follow the leader type entry and exits came through. So as I said, I started rebuying the dips and whatnot. And nice little slow grind now, and it's back over VWAP. They did have a patent today, so who knows, maybe they put out a PR. Sometimes we find the patents early, and then a day or two later they have a patent, and then it ends up running. Also, the thought process that goes through here is a lot of people will just short this just because the newsletter sold out. So sometimes, like we were talking about yesterday on IFMK, you've got that late day second surge of shorts that thought like, hey, this thing's gonna not come back, and all of a sudden it does, and they're left kind of getting squeezed. So anyway, the last one, and then we can open it up to some questions. I got the most questions on this ABIL, and at first I actually thought that it wasn't that easy to borrow, but I mean, you could pretty much borrow whatever you wanted this morning, is what I came to the realization. And I do think that this ends up, slamming back eventually, but in order to do that, I think it's got to squeeze out the shorts the rest of the way, and then we'll start to see a back. But like I said on this morning's, pre-market kind of review, this is definitely a trade of interest. It had a 6K last night, and I was in there pre-market, and unfortunately, I really minimized this trade. But, given the fact that it's delinquent, they've gone back to NASDAQ and pressed it to stay, or the process is to kind of stay on the exchange. I just tend to try to be overly cautious, especially, size and stuff like that. Whereas AWX, they didn't really need to raise. They had a line where they didn't, they're not going to slam it with a ton of shares, and they've been in business for a long time. This one is a company based out of Israel, and they've been trying to raise. They've got a short window left. They probably need the money in order to meet one of the check boxes on staying on as a listed company. The bottom line is it held VWAP the entire day, and that's one of the things that we look for, not fighting and taking advantage of this move. For the most part, granted, I was in pre-market and stuff, and I sold some into the ramps, but a newsletter got involved. So for me, just like IDRA, for me, that's an exit. And if it ends up holding and they get back in there and it looks like it's going to continue on, then I don't mind trading it, but I'd rather not be on the same side as everybody else. Once the crowd is gone, then that opens up a whole new window as far as would I trade it? Absolutely. And they came out with basically a filing. They want to raise money. They need to raise money. And keep in mind, this is less than 1 million share float. I think it's like 790,000 shares or 800,000 shares, depending on what resource you use. So let's just call it 800 to 1 million. It ended up trading half the float in 2 candles when that filing came out, and then it held trend. And like I said in the room, I'd rather be a little late than $4 too early. It was up $4 on the day, and there's still plenty of opportunity for the downside. A lot of people are afraid to miss that crack, but most times the biggest move actually comes after the crack. So nobody wants to miss that first crack, and then they all pile drive it, which, they pile drove it right here on the filing, which reasonable. There's a reason to do so. But then you have to recognize what the market is telling you. And market was absolutely telling you it's getting absorbed. The panic was gone. Shorts were already twisted from the morning. So if this holds, it's not going to be good. And so at this point, I think it pretty much squeezed out anybody that wasn't going in with a big picture plan, wasn't going in with extra bullets, expecting 10 or 12 or anything like that. And I think that they will end up being right. But this type of move is just the guys with the medium-sized accounts that, don't want to blow up. And then all the emotions get involved. And at this point, it just depends on, who has a bigger, more money, I guess, or if the bid stays. Now, after 2 p.m., I would be extremely cautious on a trade like this, just because you've seen the amendment. They want to raise, And it's really not smart if there is one person, for example, supporting the stock, as we've seen in multiple occurrences lately. And I'm not suggesting that it's them by any means. I'm just saying that it's obvious that there's somebody supporting this move. But in my opinion, it's not smart for them to hold over. So thinking about that into 2 or 3 p.m., if it's not breaking out, if it's not squeezing to 9, 10, 11 by then you got to think about an MTSL scenario or I think it was ALTC and a SSLJ, where, they peak out a few times, just like it is right now at 8. And, there's nobody, I'm not able to squeeze anybody. All of a sudden they pull the support, it unwinds, and they have to use that liquidity to get out. Because once the liquidity's gone, that's it. They're stuck with a huge bag. So one of the questions in the lounge is about newsletters and how do you know and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I surround myself with a bunch of guys that are in all the different rooms. They might say XYZ is long this, or, blah, blah is long that, or short this, whatever. And I don't care about the ones that alert stocks in the same manner that we do. With a general idea of a game plan that leaves it up to the trader's interpretation. Meaning, you can't just take whatever I say and just go and swipe the offer and know exactly what to do. You actually have to think about the trade that you're about to take and think about, okay, all right, I see what he's saying. It looks good here. Now, I'm going to risk based off this. All right, I think I'm going to take that trade. You actually have to trade, whereas a lot of the other newsletter type rooms, you just follow. And so basically any room that is just like a follow the leader, if they jump off a cliff, you do too type thing, those are the ones that I'm interested in, because that is where you get your edge. And I mean, you see it every single day. And we already went over it this morning, IDRA and MTSL type things. When a newsletter comes in, I want to be out. I like natural movement. I like the natural market, because at the end of the day, that's trading. So that's the short answer. Just surround yourself with people to know, or people write it in the room anyway. I mean, we don't allow people to write the name of the newsletters and things like that, just for obvious reasoning. But if somebody writes that a newsletter is long, and you see a volume spike, then you should assume that a couple hundred people or a couple thousand people just did the same thing. And if you're outsized on a position, then it doesn't mean you need to sell it all, but it means that maybe you should consider taking it down a notch. Here's the thing: if it doesn't budge and all the volume comes in, you should definitely consider, because right there they've showed their hand. There's a ton of volume, and all that volume is only going to go one way, right? If it doesn't break out, if it doesn't continue to go, all that volume they just took off the offer, it's coming right back to the bid. And if the bid doesn't absorb it, you're out of luck. Question about GIVO being technical move. Yes, just a pure technical move. And I think that the reason why it even kind of inched up is if you kind of see the theme today. I mean, you look at this chart, you look at this chart on ABIL, you look at INNT. You even saw MTSL moving and staff. I mean, everybody was going to stocks that ran about a month ago. So I think that's why GIVO got a bid today. And, really it depends on, number one, if I don't know how much of the ATM they have left, but if they're laying into it, obviously it's going to, end rather quickly. Or if they start to get shorts involved and the momentum comes, then, you might have a second leg later on.
In this particular study group, Nate answered a couple more questions from members. One was a little bit about trading psychology, and another one was about locates and borrows and clearinghouses. That really is one of the unique things about Investors Underground. Not only do our moderators have years and years of trading experience, we've been answering traders' questions for over a decade. Right now we're in one of the longest bull markets in history, which has been great for the Investors Underground community, because not only are we making money trading because there are so many opportunities out there, but every day there are more and more people interested in the stock market. Over the past couple of years, I've seen a lot of trading services try and start up and ride that wave of momentum. There are 18-year-old cryptocurrency traders who are now trying to teach people how to be millionaires. and people trading from their parents' basement giving webinars about Fibonacci retracements. Something really to be said about running a successful service for the last 10 years, during which period we've grown our resource base to benefit every member. This video was a bit of a taste so that you could see the kinds of resources and tools that we've been developing for traders as part of their membership with us. If you'd like a little more information, you can drop me an email. It's cam@investorsunderground.com. I take the time to reply to every single one personally. Or if you're interested in getting started, I've left a link in the video description to some custom discount deals for the people who've made it all the way to the end of this video. Give the link a click and check out some of the deals. If you've been learning a lot from the Investors Underground free videos, I'm going to say that maybe 5% of the value is in these and the other 95% is in our coursework and membership. You have to ask yourself the question, would my trading improve if I became part of the Investors Underground community today?